In this lesson, we'll discuss understanding views. The first question, of course, is what is a view? Well, views are used to build your application's user interface. These really provide the building blocks on which all iOS UIs are built. These are the visual components that we use to draw the application UI. These views then get arranged into hierarchies to form more complex user interfaces. Additionally, these provide any event handling to respond to user interaction. The UIKit framework provided by iOS provides a very large component library, and you've become quite familiar with these as an iOS user, seeing things like buttons and switches and table views. All of these things are found in the UIKit framework. All view components in iOS are subclasses of this class called UI view. A UI view handles the layout and subview management for a user interface, and then we compose these views into various parent-child relationships to build up more complex UIs. UI view additionally provides all of the infrastructure for our various touch event handling. So things like swipes and taps, all of the functionality to handle these types of events is provided by UI view. UI view also provides the drawing and animation behavior for our user interface. So views provide a drawing context to handle any custom drawing. Many of the properties defined by UI view are also animatable. So as you modify them, those properties can be animated, providing a very nice user experience. An important part of understanding how to work with UI views is to understand how their geometry is defined. A view's coordinate system has its origin point in the top left, so this is the 0, 0 point. And then positive values will extend down and to the right. There are three key properties that are used to define a view's geometry: the frame, the bounds, and the center point. The frame is the size and location of the view relative to its superview. So as we're building user interfaces, this is what we most frequently use to lay out that parent-child relationship. The bounds defines the size and location in its own coordinate system, so this is most useful when we're creating subclasses of UI view, and we want to lay out the various components within it relative to its own coordinate system. We'll use the bounds. And then the center point defines the X and Y location relative to its superview. There are a number of data types that are used to define a view's geometry. There's a CG float, and this is a floating point type that are used for all graphics operations. So as we're defining X, Y coordinates and width and height, we define those as floating point types. CG point, and this is a simple C data structure containing the X, Y coordinates for a component. CG size, this is another C data structure containing the width and height. And then finally CG rect, which is a C struct composed of both a CG point and a CG size. So as we're defining either the bounds or the frame of a component, we'll use a CG rect. The framework defines a number of helper functions that make it easier to create these structure types. So we have CG point make, and we can pass in a X and Y coordinate to create a CG point. CG size make, which will allow us to create a CG size. We pass in the width and height. And then CG rect make, and this will create a CG rect. We pass in the X and Y locations and the width and height. So we will use these frequently as we're developing iOS apps. Now we can build views programmatically. So in this case, I'm creating a CG rect, setting its XY location to 20, and then a width and height to 200. Creating a new instance of UI view using its initWithFrame initializer, and this is the designated or default initializer for a UI view. Setting its background color to red using UI color's red color method. And then finally, to add that into the view hierarchy, we would call the add subview method, and that will end up rendering something similar to what we have on the right. Although we can create views programmatically, whenever possible, we really want to use Interface Builder. This is just a much more productive environment, and it's far easier to maintain user interfaces over the long term. UI view provides the building blocks on which all iOS user interfaces are created. Out of the box, the UIKit framework provides a large set of components for building iOS apps, but we can also create our own as we need to. The remainder of this chapter will look at working with UI views.